Before we get into today's show, a quick friendly reminder to go ahead and subscribe because the offseason is not right around the corner. It is here. The NFL Combine is underway, free agency is next week, and then it's the NFL Draft. So don't miss a thing when you're subscribed to the channel. Help us reach our next milestone, 13,000 subscribers, when you join the channel today. It is good to be back, Broncos country. Matthew Peterson here from my week-long trip to London. Had a nice time across the pond, but I am ready to talk Broncos football with you guys because we have a lot to catch up on from the last couple of days. I know the Chat Sports crew here did a fantastic job of keeping you guys plugged in while I was gone, but we've got plenty to break down on today's show, so let's jump right into it. What about a DeAndre Hopkins trade? Now, this is a subject that has been all over different NFL YouTube channels and whatnot, but we really haven't spent a ton of time on it because D-Hop to Denver simply hasn't made a ton of sense. And I don't think it does right now, but the talk and chatter surrounding it has picked up the last couple of days. So, a DeAndre Hopkins trade, in my opinion, just in general, seems inevitable at this point. It looks like the Cardinals want to reset. They've got a new coach, a new GM. What do new GMs love to do? Brag about how good they are in the draft. And what do they need? Draft picks. And they can get some for a 31-year-old receiver like DeAndre Hopkins. So, could the Broncos enter the D-Hop sweepstakes? So, there has been some talk, some chatter, some murmurs out there about maybe a Courtland Sutton for DeAndre Hopkins straight-up trade with a little bit extra going to Arizona. Before we look at that, I think it's a good idea to set a baseline for us right now. So we got this report coming in from Mike Drsecki, who tweeted out, according to a couple agents I've spoken with, the Cardinals looking for at least a second-round pick and a conditional pick for DeAndre Hopkins. These conversations are taking place at the Combine. Remember, Russell Wilson last year was traded to the Denver Broncos more or less during the Combine. That is where Schneider and Payton agreed upon the trade terms. So, could the Cardinals get a second for D-Hop? If that's the case, the Broncos are out of the race, right? Now, we do see teams from time to time sort of inflate what a player's worth so that if they come down a little bit, it's not too far down from where they want to be. But the Broncos draft assets, when it comes to making a big-name trade, they don't have a ton the next 2 years. They don't have a first-round pick or a second-round pick this year. They don't have a second-round pick next year. This upcoming draft, they've got 2/3 and a 4th. Next year, they are back in round 1. But remember, their second-round pick went to New Orleans, and they picked up an additional third-rounder from the Saints. So, what could they use to get someone like DeAndre Hopkins? Probably won't be through draft assets. You might have to toss a player in. Insert Courtland Sutton. When you compare Courtland Sutton and DeAndre Hopkins the last 3 seasons, I mean, there's really no comparison, right? I don't think anyone's going to make an argument that Courtland Sutton is just as good as D-Hop. 17 touchdowns for Hopkins to 4 for Sutton over the last 3 years in nearly the identical amount of games, right there, 33, 35 apiece. It's a slam dunk one-sided affair. DeAndre Hopkins is a top 10 receiver. Courtland Sutton is simply put, nah. And I'm not trying to slander Courtland Sutton. I like him, but he's not D-Hop. So with that in mind, here's a trade idea that I saw on Fansided, and I wanted to get you guys in on this one because I think it's pretty interesting. Denver gets DeAndre Hopkins. The Cardinals get Courtland Sutton, and I'm going to go with the 4th-round pick. I think tossing Sutton in there will alleviate the need for a second or third, but a 4th is the first pick for day 3 of the draft, so you feel like you're busy early on that Saturday. So would you do this D-Hop trade, right? If you're George and Sean Payton, would you accept this deal? Yes or no? Let me know in the comment section what you would do if this was the trade proposal on your desk and you were the GM of the Broncos. For me, I can get behind this trade because DeAndre Hopkins is DeAndre Hopkins, right? He is better than Courtland Sutton. But the Cardinals, I don't see a reason why they get behind this trade. Maybe the idea of, hey, let's not strip Kyler Murray of all of his good players around him, right? We're going to get a draft piece for D-Hop and get a younger receiver in Courtland Sutton. But if they're looking to reset, they want a second or third round pick. And they can get that elsewhere. I think if teams send their best trade offers to the Cardinals, Denver's trade offer probably won't be number one. I'm guessing there are some better offers out there. But if those were the conditions of the trade straight up, I mean, why not, right? It's not like Courtland Sutton has been this irreplaceable figure on the offense the last 3 seasons. And DeAndre Hopkins is a bit older in his career, but he's still DeAndre freaking Hopkins, okay? Next up on the show, could Baker Mayfield be coming to Denver to back up Russell Wilson? It's fair to say that Grip It and Rip It with Brett Rippon is probably coming to a close. He did not look like a backup quarterback that could really push the starter last year, and Sean Payton will probably want to bring in some extra competition. So let's jump into this. The Athletic included the Broncos as a landing spot for Baker Mayfield. Sean Payton, like I mentioned, he will want to upgrade at the backup QB position. He is not going to just roll over and hand the reins over to Russell Wilson for 17 games uncontested, right? He is going to want some level of a backup that's not going to cost too much because Denver doesn't have bukus of money to spend in free agency, but also he wants to send a bit of a message of, I'm not the head coach that was here when we traded for you. I like you, but I don't love you necessarily, and I'm not going to go down sinking with you. So if I can get an intermediate backup and feel somewhat confident in tossing them into battle if Russ continues to struggle next year, that could be an avenue they decide. Now, here's what The Athletic wrote. Mayfield's best options could be returning to the Rams or joining the 49ers or Broncos. All 3 teams have successful offensive-minded head coaches and starting quarterbacks who missed time to injury during the 2022 season. Baker last year for a mix of the Panthers and the Rams was outside of that 198-yard drive against the Raiders on Thursday Night Football, objectively really bad. That's not a hot take. 1,300 yards, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Baker was trash last year. Not saying that he can't bounce back. Not saying that the first overall pick can't get back to where he was with the Browns when they went to the postseason and beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. I can get behind Baker as a backup for this team. I think a lot of teams could, viewing him as, we got a first overall pick as our backup. We're going to feel a lot better if his name gets called into action. But I don't think he is an undoubted starter, right? I think wherever Baker goes, if let's say he goes to a team like the Saints, for example, the Saints miss out on Derek Carr and they move on from Jameis Winston, well, they're probably going to bring in some sort of extra level of competition. So I think Baker's kind of in that sweet spot of, you know, he's definitely not just a solo starter. You can have Brett Rippon as your backup, but he's probably going to be brought into a situation where he's not viewed as, we hope you never have to play. No, I think he could end up somewhere where we could feel confident if you have to go start a couple of games because we're not 100% sold on our quarterback either staying healthy for all 17 games or playing at a starting quarterback level for all 17 games. So that's kind of where I stand on Baker. But be the GM, would you sign Baker to back up Russell Wilson? S for sign or P for pass? Chime in for me down in the comment section below. What would you do? I would not be opposed to signing Baker to be a backup. His character would be an interesting mesh with him being a backup. I just don't feel like he would ever really accept that role, but he's a competitive dude. Not many guys in the NFL do. Next up on the show, the Broncos are linked to Vonn Bell, the Cincinnati Bengals safety. We'll be looking at that report and whether or not it's viable for Denver to go out and sign 24 in free agency. Now, first things first, if you do not want to get pinched next week when St. Patrick's Day rolls around, make sure you get this awesome Broncos St. Patty's gear shirt. It's under $30 right now. Really good deal if you ask me. And you go to chatsports.com/Broncos Green, which, by the way, I put that link for everyone in the comments and the description of today's show. You'll get it thanks to Chat Sports and Fanatics. So rep your favorite team on St. Patty's Day. Stay green, but also stay supporting the Broncos by getting this awesome shirt. third and final segment now. Should the Broncos go out and sign Vonn Bell, the Cincinnati Bengals starting strong safety? So NFL.com picked a player for each team that they deemed would be a good fit. And they thought for Denver, Vonn Bell would be a good fit. So could the Broncos go out and sign Bell to replace Kareem Jackson? K-Jack came back last year on a one-year deal, and he played pretty well this past season. I don't think anyone's going to say otherwise. I just think K-Jack is probably done with the Broncos, mostly due to an age factor. But I didn't expect him to re-sign him last year, so I wouldn't be terribly shocked if they brought him back next year. But I would be surprised, no doubt about it. Now, here's when it comes to signing Vonn Bell to pair up with Justin Simmons and be this team's starting safety tandem. Hold up. Wait a minute. You already have Kareem Jackson's replacement. It's Caden Stearns. Am I wrong? Caden Stearns. I'm getting hook 'em horns from our producer Tex because he went to Texas along with Caden Stearns. That's your next starting safety. Him and Justin Simmons should be your starting safeties in 2023. Now, when you compare Vonn Bell to Caden Stearns in 2022, it's not fair. I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from Vonn Bell because he put up great numbers and he was a really good safety for Cincinnati. Caden Stearns only got to play in 5 games last year due to injury. But remember how great he was filling in for Justin Simmons after he got put on IR after week 1? 2 picks, 4 pass breakups right off the bat. Caden Stearns was awesome last year. That is your starting safety. You don't have to go out and sign Vonn Bell to a 1, 2, or 3-year deal. No, go with the hometown kid. Go with the player that you drafted who's on his cheap rookie deal and see what you've got in him, because I think Caden Stearns could have a long future in Denver. So I'm going to pass on Vonn Bell. Give me Caden Stearns as your starting safety alongside Justin Simmons in 2023. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. So good to be back in the studios. Great to be back here at Chat Sports talking Broncos football with you all. And we'll see you throughout the week and all off season long. So that's why you got to be subscribed for the best Broncos YouTube coverage out there.